What's going on, Bigger Pockets? It's Matt Faircloth. So I want to talk to you guys about something. Years and years ago, I don't want to date myself, but years ago when I first got started in real estate investing, in my mid-20s, I paid off all my bad debt in 2 years. I had college loans, had some credit card, not some, had a lot of credit card debt, had a lot of bad debt that was burdening me down. And the reason why bad debt stinks is you've got to pay money to maintain that debt. You got to make credit card payment, you got to pay money to make that college student loan payment, whatever it is, you've got to maintain that. And that debt payment is what dings your cash flow to the point where like maybe I'm making $400 to $500 a month in debt service payments, or maybe it's more, maybe it's less, whatever it is. But that's money you would either could be enjoying, or it could be going towards something that's really beneficial to you aside from just maintaining debt, just paying monthly payments on something. It's just like the debt payments can just suck money out of your pocket. And so it's great to just make that bad debt go away. And today's video is about how I did it, and more importantly, how you guys can do it, okay? So bad debt is, what is it? Well, it's a big chunk of money, okay, that you got here, that you owe. Did I really make a backwards S? Yeah, I freaking did. Where's my eraser? Here you go. All right, so, it's a bad debt. Okay, there we go. It's a big chunk of money, okay, that you owe. You owe this, but the bad debt, like the way it stings you, is you've got the little payments that you owe each month, right? All right, so there's two ways you can attack it, okay? You can go and do a large project, let's say a fix and flip, or maybe a couple of wholesale deals, and instead of, let's say you wholesale a property, you make 10,000 bucks. Awesome. There's a lot of tips on Bigger Pockets on how to do that. You take that 10 grand, maybe you could be stupid with it and take your family on vacation. That's okay, that's great. I take my family on vacation too, but if you have bad debt, you should take that 10 grand and pay off your bad debt, because it'll create cash flow for yourself and that monthly payment not being there anymore. The way I paid off my bad debt was a different angle. So the one way you can do it is by just attacking this big chunk all at once with a big chunk of money, throwing it at it, okay? Here's the way that I did it, and the way that this equation I'm going to give you guys works really well if you are of the younger years and say your mid-20s, if you are married with no kids or not married, and whatnot. And the reason for that is we're going to talk about you guys adjusting your living situation, which is easier to do if you don't have children. If you do have children, it's okay. Kids are actually pretty versatile, and they can live in situations that I'm going to describe here. And if your spouse is on board, which is 100% imperative if you're married, for your spouse to be on board for this kind of thing, and especially important and on board to eliminating bad debt. If your spouse is on board for all this stuff, then they'll likely be on board for what I'm going to describe here. But here's how I did it when I was single. But this is how I laid it out. The first thing I did, okay, was I reduced my expenses. I did that by living below my means. Okay, I live below my means. So what that means is if I could afford a mortgage payment or a rent payment or something like that, that was $1,500 a month based on my income. If my income's up here, okay, at $3,000 a month, or let's use it, like if I'm making $4,500 a month, I can afford $1,500 a month in rent. I can, okay, or in mortgage or whatever it is. But I choose to pay less. I'm going to pay $1,200 and live in maybe a different area, maybe not live with a Starbucks down the block from my house, or I'm going to do whatever I can to reduce my expenses. And here's other expenses that I may have. Maybe here's my car payment. Okay, and instead of maybe driving a brand new car every 2 years with a lease payment that never goes away, maybe I pay my car off. Maybe I go and get myself an older car that doesn't have payments to it that I buy for cash. Maybe you eliminate stupid expenses like Blue Apron or something like that. And Blue Apron's not stupid, but you don't need it, okay? It is a luxury. You don't need to have Blue Apron food delivered to your house. That is a luxury. So there's other luxury items that you might have here in your car and your house and everything like that. So what I did was I found a way to reduce these means. So I was able to keep this and reduce this stuff. That's the first thing I did, is I reduced my expenses by living below my means. And that is difficult for most people to do because most people in America live above their means, okay? So the first step to paying off bad debt is just simply living below your means. And what that does is that creates, instead of your expenses being all this high, it creates an expense where you're maintaining your income here, but your expenses are this, instead of all the way up here, by cutting out a lot of that superfluous stuff that you don't necessarily need. And it's about examining everything in your life, looking at all your expenses and saying, do I really need this stuff? And asking that question like, do I want to eliminate the Blue Apron so that I can be financially free sooner? Like, that's the question, is compare financial freedom and being able to have all the Blue Aprons I want later versus like letting it go for now and having Blue Apron now, but maybe not getting to financial freedom as soon as I want to get there, right? So I reduced my expenses from here to here, okay? Right? That's the first thing I did. The next thing I did was, okay, and this is the conversation, and this kind of reducing expenses is something your spouse has to be enrolled in because they might need to also drive not as nice of a car and maybe live in like pay a little bit less in rent or something like that. And the next thing I did, which goes back to rent that we pay, or mortgages that we pay, is I house hacked. Okay? Now that's, real estate slang for living in a property that I also have other people living in that they pay me rent to live there as well. I personally lived in a single family home. I bought a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. I bought it for $150K. Okay? And 3-bedroom, 1 bath, $150,000. My mortgage was $940 a month. Okay, that was my situation. Now, again, this was a few years ago. It's all right, but you could still. This equation is still there in other properties in the U.S. Maybe not in your neighborhood. Maybe you got to find a new neighborhood to get to make it work. And if the property price is more, then you can obviously charge a few more dollars in rent. But here's the rent that I got. Okay. I got $500 per month per bed, okay? And it was a 3-bedroom. I lived in one. I had 1 bedroom for myself, and I had 2 friends of mine come and live in the other 2 bedrooms, and they both paid me $500 a month and 1/3 of the expenses to live there. That's the way it went down. And so I was making $1,000 a month in income. My mortgage was $940. So I was living there in essence for free. Okay, and I had $940 a month in expenses to pay out. So I was making $60. I was bringing in $1,000 and paying out $940 in mortgage. I was making $60 a month, which is great in cash flow. And more importantly, I'm living there for free. Okay, this situation now, this applies to small multifamily, and I wished I had bought a duplex or a triplex or even a quad. Any of those you can buy on low money down. I bought this property at 3% down. That program still exists. Low money down mortgages for owner-occupied property. Okay, so I bought this low money down. I think $4,500 down, 3% to buy this property. You can come up with that. If you don't have it, then first, save up, reduce your means, eliminate the Blue Apron subscription, save up $4,500. And then buy a house for $150K. Maybe in your neighborhood, there's houses not for $150K. Maybe they're $300K or $400K or $500K. Whatever it is, that's the equation you got to do. But I would be willing to bet you that if the properties in your neighborhood are selling for $500,000, you can rent for more than $500 per bedroom, or more likely a duplex. You can rent a whole unit out for more than that. Okay, so. Don't be telling me you can't find a $150,000 house in your neighborhood. I get that. It's whatever it is, but the rents will probably trail up based on the property price because of neighborhoods and because of cost of living and all those different reasons. Okay, so this equation might not work exactly for you, but the property price and the rents, if you run the numbers, I've seen this work in most parts of America. It's got to be a neighborhood where people are willing to rent. Okay. And like I said, a small multi, a duplex, triplex, quad is even better. This 3-bedroom, 1 bath worked. If I were married at the time, likely my wife is not going to be okay living with, 2 of my buddies living with us. So this worked when I was young and single. So if you are young and single, do this. If you're married, consider to see if your spouse is open to moving into a small multi, to living in a duplex, triplex, or quadruplex with tenants living around you guys so that you can reach financial freedom sooner. If you have kids, maybe that's something you and your spouse are open to as well. Everything's possible if you want to achieve things, and you need to open yourself up to possibilities on what it will take to get yourself to the financial freedom goal that you want to get to, okay? Now, in essence, what I did here is I eliminated a lot of my living expenses. So my living expense, at first, I reduced my living expenses by cutting out a lot of things that I didn't need. Then, I was able to cut my living expenses. Started out here when I was living high on the hog. Then they cut down to here when I was able to eliminate some of those expenses and live below my means. Then I cut them all the way down to here, to where my cost of living was less than $1,000 a month. Because what was I paying for? I was paying for utilities, but only a third of them, because my tenants were paying for that too. I was paying for my food, my fun, things that I wanted to do to go enjoy myself and everything was like that. You know, just living a modest life of a mid to late 20-something at the time, okay? And so what happened was this gap here of the around $1,000 a month to the top of my earned income, I created $3,500 a month. Now, I could go and do a lot of fun things with that money, but I didn't. What I did was I threw all of that at my bad debt, and I was able to pay it off very quickly. I paid off $20,000 in student loans and around the same in credit card debt. So 40 grand I paid off pretty quickly, okay? It took 2 years because not every month that I have that $3,500 a month to pay. Some months I did, some months I didn't, okay? But every month I religiously threw all the extra dollars I had at those debt items, at the credit card, at the student loans, and within 2 years I had it all paid off. Now, if your debt is more than that, then that's okay. You just gotta, be diligent and throw it at it and everything like that. And you've also got to reduce your means and house hack and just stay the course. And it might take more than 2 years to pay it off. So you could have $100,000 in bad debt. Maybe you do both angles that I talked about before, where you do some large chunks of cash activity, where you do a wholesale, you do a fix and flip, and you throw that money at the bad debt, and then you also reduce your means and house hack. Okay, these two things are maybe not the most. I mean, because nobody wants to reduce it. People want to live well. You want to be able to expend money when you need to or when you want to, and do lots of great things and stuff like that. But the folks that I've seen that are willing to be successful are ones that are willing to live for slight delayed gratification. Okay, so if you're willing to cut out the Blue Apron and maybe not drive a car that's got a $700 a month monthly payment or something like that, and reduce your means, if you're willing to do that, what you realize, if you're willing to play the long game in life, that within 2 to 3 years you can go get that $700 a month monthly payment car because you've made the bad debt go away. Okay, and then the $300 to $500 you're paying towards those those old credit cards and towards student loans or whatever it is, all that goes to your pocket, and then that can become a fun car payment eventually. Okay, once you get this set up, and once you eliminate that big dollar sign that I talked about earlier of the big bad debt that's eating away your wealth right now. Okay, so interesting conversation. This is how I did it. If people watching have been able to pay off your bad debt in other means and other circumstances, tell your story. We want to hear your story on Bigger Pockets about how you did it, because it is something that's inspiring. It's something that burdens a lot of people, especially the younger generations in our country. And I think that the faster that we can get out of a lot of get folks out of these bad debt conversations through making smarter financial decisions, the more real estate investors we'll have, and more people doing fun stuff in life, and people really living life the way they want to, that we'll have here. And I think it's an inspiring conversation for me. And so if you've been able to do this, then share your story in the comment box. If you're inspired by this and you want to make some commitments and it really speaks to you, then speak to it as well. And make sure, if you're married and your spouse hasn't gotten into this bad debt conversation and how you can really attack it, show your spouse this video, because this is something that you need to be both on board with and aligned with, or it's just not going to happen, because they're going to want to continue to live life up here on the expense side, and you're going to be committed to do this, and there's going to be a delta, and you're going to need to get on the same page if it's really going to happen. So cool. I appreciate your comments, guys. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being a part of this conversation. Have a great and profitable week.